If you decide to buy new rotors, you will want to get quality parts. I strongly recommend avoiding the cheapest rotors your parts store sells. You get what you pay for. Purchase a set of OEM rotors if the store has them, or rotors from one of the quality brands like Wagner, Delco, Brembo, Centric, EBC, Raybestos or Bosch. Tools required to do your work. In case some of you don't have these tools, you can make use of any one that you have. Shop repair manual for your specific make and model of vehicle. The manual will provide specific directions for pad and rotor replacement. Also, the essential bolt torques are provided with this resource. Haynes or Chilton manuals for most cars, SUVs and light trucks are available online or at your auto parts store. Instead of a hard copy manual, a CD-ROM manual may be available for your specific vehicle. Online manuals are also gaining popularity. Floor jack such as Arkin XL2T 2-ton floor jack for most vehicles. Jegs 3-ton floor jack for full-size pickup trucks and SUVs. 2 jack stands, 3-ton capacity per pair. Big Red T43002A 3-ton jack stands. With jacks and jack stands, cheaper is not better. Look for quality in these devices. Your life may depend on it. Socket set 3/8 and 1/2 drive such as DeWalt 192-piece mechanics tool set. Lug wrench or 1/2 drive breaker bar such as Tecton 20-inch 4-way lug wrench. 1/2 drive torque wrench such as Tecton 1/2 drive 25-250 feet. Pound. Husky 1/2 drive 50-250 feet pound. 3/8 drive hex bit socket 2. Lexidon Master hex bit socket set. Check repair manual to see if SAE or metric size fasteners used. 1. Hex bits are often called Allen wrenches, but you won't get enough leverage with a normal L-shaped Allen wrench. Flathead screwdriver such as Klein Tools 7-piece screwdriver set best. Craftsman 8-piece screwdriver set good. C-clamp able to open to at least 6 such as Tecton 6 C-clamp. Wheel chocks such as Max Howell 2-pack solid rubber wheel chocks. Flat piece of wood for caliper retraction, 5 long x2 wide by 3/8 thick. 4 length of 2x4 wood for rotor removal. Wire brush such as Lyle 13410 disc brake caliper brush. Work light such as Olympus 60-watt LED work light. Old toothbrush or paintbrush. Q-tips. Shop vacuum such as Backmaster 12-gallon shop vacuum. Rigid 12-gallon shop vacuum. One made in the USA no longer means the fasteners on your car will be the US standard SAE sizes. Socket sets that include both SAE and metric sizes are common and not overly expensive. Having such a set can come in handy well beyond just automotive repair work. And most of you, if you are black, you can get it anywhere. Too many brake calipers will require the use of a hex bit to enable unfastening the piston assembly from the piston housing. Your shop manual may provide relevant information in this regard. Materials required. High quality .3 or .4 brake fluid. Check your shop or owner's manual to determine which type of fluid to use. High temperature brake lube such as 8700,015 Plastilube or Permatex 24125 ceramic extreme brake parts lubricant. Anti-seize grease such as Permatex 80078 anti-seize lubricant. Non-chlorinated brake cleaner such as CRC Brackeline brake parts cleaner. Metal coat hanger. 2 ft of small diameter hose or tubing or turkey baster. UTSA UTO windshield washer hose kit. Shop towels or paper towels. Mechanics gloves such as Mechanics Wear original work gloves. Dust mask. Insulated mug or hot coffee. Brake pad replacement, step by step. Before we get into this, let me mention that your personal safety while working on your car or whatever else you might do in life is important. Taking unnecessary risks may pump up your adrenaline, but especially does not belong in your garage while performing any car repairs. It's Trinix AutoFix. For a comprehensive look at safe repair procedures, please review this article. Number 1. Before starting, get the needed parts. Yes, you might have to take the rotors back to the parts store for machining, but not if you are going to buy new ones. So get the parts and necessary materials required. Above all else, update your shop with the essential tools listed above. My rule for tools is this: if some are good, more are better. Keep this concept in balance with marital harmony. To protect your hands and or keep them clean, you may want to wear mechanics gloves. Prior to any process that raises dust into the air, you should always don a protective dust mask. Now let's get to it. Number 2. Jack up the vehicle and remove wheels. 4. Jack safety. Before jacking up your car, place wheel chocks behind the opposite axle's tires. Think about which way the car would roll if you raised up either the front or rear end. This is especially important when working on the rear brakes since there is no parking brake on the front wheels. Loosen the wheel lug nuts using a lug wrench or breaker bar, not a torque wrench. If you wait until the car is off the ground, the wheels will want to rotate when you try to loosen these nuts. If you are replacing the front brake pads, firmly engage the car's parking brake. Do not apply the parking brake when replacing rear pads. The engaged brake will prevent disassembly of the calipers. While observing safe jacking practices, use your hydraulic floor jack to lift the front or rear of your car to a comfortable working height. Your shop manual will show you the optimum jack points for raising the car. Now place 2 jack stands at right and left symmetrical locations and lower the floor jack slightly so most of the weight of the car is carried by the stands. Warning: do not raise your car using the scissor-type jack furnished with your car. That jack is for flat tires only and is unsafe for any repair work. Suitable jack stand locations might be the horizontal frame rails of the frame structure that supports the front suspension lower control arms. Even though the car's weight is on the jack stands, leave the floor jack in place holding some of the weight. This provides a backup load path should a jack stand fail. Warning: jacks or jack stands located on sloping surfaces can allow the car to slip off and fall to the ground while you are working. These lifting and support devices must only be used on flat, horizontal surfaces in order for the car to be 100% secure during the job. Remove the wheels that are off the ground. You loosen the lugs before you jack up the car so removal should be easy. Use a magnetic tray, coffee can or other suitable container for the lug nuts and for all nuts, bolts and other hardware removed during this job. Number 3. Remove caliper bolts and caliper assembly. Remove caliper assembly. Begin on either side of the car. To improve access to fasteners, the front spindle and rotor assembly can be turned to the right or left by turning your steering wheel. If your car has a steering wheel lock, it will have to be released to enable this repositioning of the rotors. Examine the brake caliper. Consider now how to gain access to the pads in order to remove them. You'll note that the pads can only be removed in a direction toward the center of the rotor. There will be one of 2 possible pad retention arrangements as follows. Caliper type 1 pads retained by the piston assembly. In this case, the piston assembly will be seen to slide on 2 pins. To detach the piston assembly, remove each of the 2 sliding pins. A hex bit socket will be required. Pull the piston assembly and pads off the rotor. Use a length of coat hanger wire to hang the piston assembly from some sturdy feature above, such as a coil of the spring if present. Do not allow the piston to hang by the hydraulic hose as this could damage the hose. Caliper type 1 pads retained by a separate bracket. The piston still slides on 2 pins, but these pins need not be removed. The removable bracket can be dealt with in this fashion. Loosen the lower bracket bolt. Remove the upper bolt and pivot the bracket assembly and pads out away from the disc. In both cases above, the pads will be lightly clamping the rotor and may not be free to slide off. In this situation, insert a screwdriver blade between the surface of either pad and the rotor. Now pry the pad slightly away from the rotor. This will loosen both pads' grip and they should be free to slide off the rotor. Important: once the pads are pulled off the rotor, do not press the brake pedal. Doing so will pop the pistons out of the caliper with a loss of brake fluid. Reassembly without the proper tools will be exceedingly difficult. Number 4. Remove old brake pads. How long do brake pads last? The pads sit in a groove in the surrounding assembly, either piston or bracket. They can now be removed by sliding them toward the open space vacated by the rotor. There may be thin metal guide strips around the pad ends. Note how they are installed and remove them. If your new pads do not include these metal strips, you may have to reuse the old parts. Number 5. Examine brake rotor. Replace, resurfacing, or leave as is. Examine the rotor and determine whether you will replace it, have it resurfaced, or simply leave for now. Review the what about the brake rotors section above. If you're replacing or resurfacing your rotor, you will have to remove it. Here's how. First, around the raised center section, look for a retaining screw through the rotor or a snap ring on one of the wheel studs. If present, either of these must be removed. Now, wiggling the rotor by hand, it should pull right off. But it may be stubborn. If so, steps 2 or 3 below may help. The rotor may have 1 or possibly 2 threaded holes opposite one another in the center section. If so, an appropriate size bolt can be screwed into one or both of these holes. Using a wrench, tighten the bolts. This force should be sufficient to loosen the rotor so you can pull it off. If there are no threaded holes, the rotor can be loosened using this technique. Place a short 2x4 block against one rotor edge and using a hammer, smack the block gently several times. This should loosen the rotor so that it will pull off. Number 6. Retract push-in pistons. Retract caliper piston. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification icon to keep you updated. To prepare for the rear